All right, thank you, everybody. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Healdsburg Parks and Recreation Commission for February 14th, 2018. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody, and welcome. Roll call. Present tonight, we have Commissioner Scott, Commissioner Lambert, Commissioner Dobley, myself, Commissioner Harrod, Mota, and Commissioner Birdsong. Absent is Tripathi. I'd like to welcome our newest commissioner, Lacey Scott. Thank you for being here, and thanks for contributing your time and energy to our commission. We appreciate that. Do you care to say a few words to us?
I'm just looking forward to working with you all.
A little closer.
Thank you. Just looking forward to working with you all and learning about what you guys have been doing, and excited to be taking this position. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair, before we move on, I think it would be great if each of the commissioners could introduce themselves, talk a little bit about how long they've been on the commission.
That would be great. Okay, let me start over here.
I'm Kathy Birdsong, and I've been on the commission for a long time.
Do you know how long, Kathy? I'm curious.
I think I was appointed in 1996.
Great.
So I've seen a lot of stuff that's happened, and I really enjoy being here. It's a great commission to be on, and I really like the introduction of the arts in our agendas, because I am an artist, retired school teacher, and an artist currently. So that's me.
Juan Mota. I've been on the commission, I think about 5.5 years now. Originally from Mexico, but been here for many years. I won't say how many because it'll tell my age. But I love this town, and I'm here because I want to see what I can do to help the town itself. Welcome.
And I'm Chris Harrod, and I've been on the commission for just a little over 2 years now. And I originally was motivated to participate in this way because I have 2 small kids, and we use the park systems a lot. We've used the community center a lot, and so I just saw it as I had ideas to bring to the department, and was anxious to participate in a general way, and also just to learn more about the process, which I have, and there's much more to learn, but it's been really gratifying just to find out how our city government operates and so forth.
How old are your children?
They're 9 and 11.
9 and 11.
Yeah.
Ron Dobley, this is my second year on the commission. My motivation to serve is actually somewhat the opposite of Chris's. Having no kids, I wanted to make sure that our parks and recreation and community services meet all the needs of our community. So I'm interested in the other aspects. Not that I'm not interested in kids, but I do think I'm not having kids, I bring a different perspective, hopefully, to the commission. Looking forward to serving my second year now that I've got my feet wet and I know how things work, so I'm excited to start a new year.
John Lambert. Okay, it's also my second year on the commission, and it's kind of an obvious factor, though, that at one point I was a professional athlete. I played in the NBA for a long time before starting a business in the financial services industry. I worked with Morgan Stanley and been in that industry for about 25 years. And have been a resident, or at least owned property in this community for about 9 years. And I kind of grew up in the Recreation and Parks Department when I was younger, and I know what an important and valuable asset is to the community. So I thought if I want to use my talents to sort of contribute back to a very important aspect of what was a part of my upbringing, and I found out it's much broader than I ever thought it would be. There's a lot more opportunity for us to have an impact on the lives of everybody here that is a resident than I ever imagined. It's been one of the most rewarding experiences I've had in quite some time. So I'm thankful to be a part of this commission and joining all of you.
Yeah, great.
There you go.
Great. Now I feel like I should tell a little bit about myself since I haven't.
Yeah, please do.
So I've been in the community for 5 years. I'm a real estate broker. I have 2 3.5-year-old children, a little boy and a little girl, so twins. So we use the community center quite a bit, and very involved with all the different offerings that they have for children. I'd like to get involved in a couple of the adult offerings as well. Haven't done that yet, as I just don't have enough free time. And so Before that, we were over in St. Helena for a couple years, and before that, Colorado. So I was very involved in Colorado with parks and community offerings. It was definitely a different scale than here. We only had a town of 750 people. The whole county was only 2,400. But it was amazing with how, I was actually speaking with Mark earlier, how involved the community was there and all of the different offerings that they had. Music in the park on Thursdays. It was had a lot of resort draw with off-roading and skiing and mountain biking in the summertime. And so a lot of tourists would be there, and that was needed. And so lots of different commissions there, but they were just put together kind of on a whim with events for 4th of July, music in the park, arts in the park. It was a really neat community that we were a part of, and so I just wanted to get involved here again, and thought this was a great commission to be a part of and help out with.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you for stepping up and applying.
Thank you.
Appreciate having you here. Okay, so if we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
So, Mr. Chair, before we move on to the next agenda item, this is our first meeting where we're actually being televised. The audio's been streamed in the past, but this is the first time that there's a video as well. The meetings are live, but they'll also be available on the city's website through its portal for a long time, in perpetuity, I guess. And they'll be delivered to Healdsburg public access television, for replay on the cable channels in town. So you shouldn't really notice anything different other than the cameras are on and active, and you'll see them turn every once in a while. There's different frames that they choose based on who's talking and what's being presented. And they'll also collect have the images that are on the PowerPoint throughout the meeting as well that will stream out.
That's great. Thank you. All right, so changes and deletions from the agenda. Is there anybody who has any changes they'd like to suggest?
Nope.
There are none. Okay, thank you. And approval of the minutes from our meeting in January. And I found no reason for changes to those minutes. Is there anybody else who'd like to?
I only saw one change that needs on last. I wasn't here on December, so I didn't. I abstained from voting, and it showed four ayes. That's the only thing.
Yeah, I recall that was the case. Yeah. Which item was that?
That was. Let's see. That was for the approval of the minutes for the last meeting.
Oh, okay. Okay, so just the approval. All right.
Yeah, that's all it was.
Okay, I'm going to make that change then, please. Thank you.
We'll make that change.
All right. Anything else? Okay.
I'd like to motion that we approve them as noted.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I will abstain since I wasn't commissioned
Okay.
at that point.
And the motion passes with one abstention.
I'll abstain as well. I wasn't present at the last meeting, so I'm going to abstain.
Okay. Fair enough. So Lambert, Herod, Moda, and Birdsong approve. Thank you. All right. Moving on to election of chair and vice chair for 2018. First of all, I want to thank the commission for allowing me to serve as chair for the last year. I had hoped it would be an educational experience, and it really was. It was nice to kind of get under the hood with some of the processes that go into the meetings and the department, and it was really fun to do that, and occasionally challenging, and I appreciate the whole experience. So thank you very much for having confidence in me too.
You did a great job.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. You did a really great job.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right. So, thank you. So, moving forward, Mark did send an email to announce that there are these openings, and based on that feedback, I have a nomination I'd like to propose, but I'd like to open it up to anybody else who would at this time express some interest in the chair position. Okay, so I think that the best way to handle this then is we'll discuss the chair and then we can discuss the vice chair afterwards. Is that okay? All right. So I would like to, at this point, nominate somebody who I respect great, whose experience I value on this commission very much, and was very pleased to see reappointed to her position. So I would like to nominate Commissioner Birdsong to be chair for 2018. And I'd like to make a motion that if she accepts, that she be our chair for 2018.
Yeah. Thank you.
Can we have a second?
Awesome. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, and so
Congratulations.
that's it. Congratulations, and thank you very much. For vice chair, I would like to nominate, and we can open it up to other nominations as well, but I would like to nominate Commissioner Dobley, who I've found has presented keen interest in the topics here, but also a person who really asks a lot of great and penetrating questions. And so I've really come to appreciate his intelligence, his perspective. And if he's accepting, I'd like to nominate Ron for the vice chair position.
I would be honored to serve.
I second the nomination.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. So
Congratulations, Ron.
congratulations.
Thank you.
And now the switching of the chairs.
Okay, I've got this all warmed up for you.
All right.
Grab your name flags.
So, Ron, you go over here, friend. You got to man those things.
Oh, I need a name, don't I?
You have a name.
We can just.
Okay, let's try.
Okay. I'm just concerned about rolling off the edge.
No one's done that yet.
Uh-oh. Won't be the first on TV.
Great, Ron, I'm glad you're here. Okay. I guess I need my glasses on to see this. No, I can do it. Okay, it's time for public comments, and this is the time that we receive comments from the public regarding matters of general interest not on the agenda but related to commission business. Pursuant to the Brown Act, however, the commission cannot consider any issues or take any action on any request during this comment period. I don't see a whole lot of people in the audience who are going to make comments unless it's Dave. Okay, let's go on to item number 4, which is old business. And let's hear from our director.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. So this agenda item is to give you an update on our community services project. We did this about 6 months ago, so it's time. It'll also set the stage as you start thinking about your goals and work plan for the upcoming year. There's a lot of information I'm going to try to go through. I'm going to keep it at a high level. After each particular project, I'll stop, and if there are questions, please let me know. So following through in your packet, there was a table that we put together that's categorized based on program area and the particular supervisor who oversees that area. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's the person who's only working on it. A lot of these projects cross different program areas. So I'm just going to go through that table pretty much column by column and touch on where we are in various projects so you know where we're at as we move forward. So the first project is the 3 North Street redevelopment project. This was formerly called the Cherry site at one time and even the Purity building. As you know, it's been under design for a number of years. We received City Council approval in May of 2017 to move forward into the design review and the CEQA process based on the concept that's shown in this image that retains a portion of the building and retrofits it for more of an event kind of facility and then creates parking on the site as well. We're currently finalizing the design review and the submittals and the CEQA submittal documents. They'll be submitted to planning hopefully in early March, and then they'll begin the planning process for both CEQA and design review. We've also had a preliminary meeting about the funding plan and potential options. That needs some more work, and so we'll kick that off as soon as we get the design review and CEQA application in process. At a future point, we'll enter into construction plans and bidding, and then the actual construction process contingent on available funding. A lot of information, 3 years of work almost in a short 2-second update. Second project is going to be a very large project as well. Those of you, you should be aware that we received official notice from the developer of the Saggio Hills project that project will be moving forward. The bottom right-hand image is the actual master plan for the site. It's a combination of a resort located in this area. Let me orient you. Healdsburg Avenue is located right here. The vacant former RJW site is on this side. You'll see trash dumpsters there every once in a while. The old Pasalacqua road goes in about right in this location. The site is a mixed-use site that includes residential, some single-family residential that also functions as resort operations, and then the overall resort in this location. The resort is, they announced, is a Montage, so it's a fairly high-end resort. At this point in time, what we've heard from the developer is they're going to construct the resort, which includes the resort complex and the housing units, and they'll be holding off on doing the residential portion. As part of the resort requirements, they have to construct a fire station, which will be located, it's a substation, which will be located on the far southwest corner of the site, and provide funding for the city construction of about a 36-acre park area. The city started or worked with the community through a public process in 2006 to create a concept plan for the site. That concept plan still lives on today. We also did some work in 2016 when this looked like it was going to move ahead to re-envision the property and the park and how it might function in a different context. So the two approaches are different, and once we initiate the design process, we'll need to have that conversation with the community about what should this park be. Active use, passive use, a mix of different uses. So as of right now, I put together a preliminary timeline for the park design and construction that completes the construction by late spring of 2020, when we believe, 2020 of 2020, when the resort is expected to be complete, and the park construction needs to be complete at approximately the same time. We need some information from the developer on his work plan and his timelines to finalize that. Once we get that in place, then we'll move ahead and secure a design firm to work on the project. And my estimate right now is we'll kick off that design work in the early summer, which will include a fairly comprehensive public process as part of that. Exciting project. There's money to build this. About $2.8 million available. So I think it'll be an exciting project as we move forward.
Excuse me, Mark.
Yes.
That was $2.8 million available for the park itself?
Correct. So there was about $3 million that was initially available. In the 2000s, they spent about $100,000 of that looking at grading plans, information that we'll be able to use as we move forward. And then we also expended some funds in 2016 working on that revised concept. Ultimately, that revised concept didn't move forward because the development didn't actually move forward at the time. So the developer asked the city to kind of stop that process and wait till everything could happen in sync. So there's roughly $2.8 million remaining for the project.
And no estimates of additional funding that's going to be needed, because I'm guessing the 2.8 is not enough to fully fund that entire park construction and process.
That's correct. So a lot of it will depend on what the scope of the development is. The 2006 concept plan showed this as a very active park with sports fields and a lot of infrastructure that would go in place. The revised concept in 2016 was much more passive, and it actually redirected some dollars to the community center to construct a synthetic turf, which I'll talk about, which we didn't actually get grant funding for. And so that conversation needs to happen. If the desire is to move forward with a very active use park here, and that's what the community wants, then we'll have to look at what that funding gap is and what can we build now, what could be phased, all those kinds of things. Great. Okay. Next project, park development fees. The commission is well aware that we've been in discussions about ensuring that development pays their required fees for parks. I'm pleased to propose that we have implemented that for the development process. So there's the Quimbiac fees. You remember we talked about that a few meetings ago. So that is in place, and we're actually applying that towards new development. We're finalizing the commission's role in the development process itself. So what role does this commission play versus what role does the planning commission play in reviewing developments? There's definitely a role for this commission in the if there's a public park that's proposed. So for example, Saggio Hills, you'd obviously be heavily involved in that. So I'll be able to come back in March at your next meeting with a more thorough discussion about all of this and how this all works together. So the good news is, as these new developments are happening now, we are starting to require that fee for parks as part of their development.
And is that just for new developments, or is it infill lots as well within the city?
The way the Quimbiac works is it's applicable to projects that have 5 units or 5 lots or more. So it's single family home, and 5 lots or more triggers the Quimbiac. There's also an impact fee that the city collects. So the impact fee is intended to fund the impact of those new residents on our existing parks. The Quimbiac fee is intended to fund the new requirements, so new parkland, new facilities that are required because there's more people living in the town. So impact fees apply currently. The Quimbiac fees are the fees that we have recently started implementing.
Okay, and when you say 5 units or more single family, that also is for multifamily, correct?
Correct. It excludes commercial and apartments, but it does include like duplexes, condominiums, those kinds of things.
Okay.
Fitch Mountain and Healdsburg Ridge open space transfers. So the transfers, Healdsburg, Fitch Mountain was completed last fall. We're in the process of reviewing an updated conservation easement for Healdsburg Ridge. The plan is to have that property transferred to the city by June 30th of this year. The Callahan property acquisition. So this is a concept right now. It's not actually a live project, it's a concept. So there's a parcel of land that's south of Healdsburg Ridge that had been used for years by the public for hiking and walking. There were some things that happened, and that property was essentially closed off. We've been in conversations with that representatives of that property owner about potentially selling, and there seems to be some interest in moving forward with transferring the ownership of that land. More information to come. These are all very preliminary conversations, but there is interest on both sides. The arts conversation, as you recall, we started this last fall. I believe it was in September. We kind of took a pause with the fires and all the other things that are happening, but I'm happy to report that we're back in progress. As you know, we are initiating a temporary art installation program currently. I'll talk a little bit more about that as we move down this list. And then there's a concept of continuing that conversation, but talking more about what's the vision of arts in Healdsburg? What does that mean to the community? It potentially could be something that's part of the SDAT, which you should be familiar with, the Sustainable Design Advisory Team project. It could be something that the city launches on its own or does it in conjunction with Healdsburg Center for the Arts and the Voight Foundation. As of right now, it looks like that process would likely start this summer because of our other workload and other things that are going on. So there's progress being made. Mr. Jans, as you know, worked really closely with Healdsburg Center for the Arts to launch the Art After Dark series last year. We are planning an arts festival for this summer with Healdsburg Center for the Arts. So there's exciting things that are happening, but they're kind of with the context of waiting for this larger conversation to happen. Corazon Outreach, as you know, the city entered into a professional services agreement and a lease agreement with Corazon. to provide Latino outreach services. That work is underway. They're really doing great things. We have, I believe, 2 ESL classes and a GED class at the community center that are all focused on our Latino population. They've been really successful in bringing groups in to participate in city processes, and so that work will continue as we move forward. The Memorial Beach Master Plan. Sonoma County Regional Parks plans to implement a master plan update for Memorial Beach. They had hoped to get this underway last year. Because of the fires and the impact to their system, that project has been delayed. I'm hopeful it'll happen this year. I haven't had a chance to touch base with their staff yet to find out, but that is still part of the work plan.
You think we might have a presentation from them with an update, or maybe not?
I'm sure we will, and I would imagine this commission will actually be involved in that process at some level. But I just don't know what their status is. They had some impacts with the fire, so they got caught behind some of that stuff. So, cost recovery model. This is really important for us to help determine how much we should recover in fees. We're working right now with our finance department on a cost of services study, which will kind of lay the groundwork for the cost recovery model. That'll be coming forward to you kind of more at a policy level, like what level of cost recovery should we achieve on different types of programs. So that's upcoming.
Sorry, a quick question about that.
Absolutely.
When they are going to be studying that, they're also going to be looking at enrollment levels of classes, because this is just purely off of classes that are provided?
So this is a citywide cost of service study that the city's doing right now. It's to look at the fees across the city. So they're looking at building permit fees and license fees. And for our department, it affects rental fees, program fees. Most of our programs are based on the actual cost of the program plus some kind of administrative overhead. So it will incorporate use numbers, but it's really focused more on the cost of the service. What's the service cost? And then what is the amount of fee recovery that the city should be achieving as part of that? So use numbers will definitely go into that because they go into maximum and minimums for programs and things like that. The synthetic turf project, as I mentioned previously, that project did not receive grant funding. It's basically on hold right now pending other funding, which we'll be discussing as part of the CIP process. The Parks and Recreation Facilities Assessment, that's currently right now, we did receive proposals. We interviewed 3 firms a week ago Friday, and I'm in conversations with the firms about better defining the scope of the project. So we make sure we get the deliverables that we need to move forward in making good decisions about our capital investments, our funding, and those kinds of things. So the good news is the 3 firms that we talked to were all very well qualified, very excited about the project. It's just better defining exactly what they're going to deliver and then what that cost is. The temporary art installation program you may have seen on Facebook. Public Works has removed a bunch of the plant materials in the area where it's going. I understand today they were actually doing installation of DG, gravel material that'll create essentially a really nice base for artists to work on. Had a chance to visit with Justin on Saturday a little bit and talk about the program. So we're still in line to launch in March as we originally had planned.
Yeah, it looks great.
The roundabout artwork. So there will be art associated with the roundabout. The question is what art and where and how. And I believe that there's a desire to have this conversation as part of this visioning process. So art installation, visual art installation started along the Foss Creek pathway. We've had some requests lately for different kinds of art, and it's really continuing that discussion that you had last fall about what is art, what is appropriate art for Healdsburg, and how do you define that? I think the roundabout will be a lively conversation. It'll be good because some of the actual site work will be complete this summer, so people will get a better visual feel. I went out there and took pictures. It's hard to tell exactly where everything is, but we'll be able to envision or vision what could go there and how it might function and how it might look. So the plan is to incorporate the art at the roundabout with the larger conversation about what is art to Healdsburg.
Councilmember Hagley's been posting on Facebook his tours of the roundabout area and getting some more details of what that's actually going to look like out there. It's been kind of interesting for me to see that. So if you're kind of peering around the corner about what this might be for us and the community at large, it's good to seek that out and check it out, what he's posting.
And we also just received a visual kind of mock-up based on the plant materials and things like that of what the roundabout will look like, and that's certainly something I can share with you. I think it's good information to know and see, so I'll make sure I send that.
That's part of what David had posted.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Did David post that on his personal page? Is that what he's been posting?
I don't know if he has.
I think it's on the city page.
It might be.
I saw it as
Yeah,
well.
I'm not sure.
It was his mayor page, his David Hagley City Council member mayor page.
Okay.
Okay.
Moving on the south end of town, the city manager had asked our department to look at doing some revitalization to the entrance medians that are on the far south end of town. So as you come off the freeway ramp, as you come down the hill before Lola's Market, there's a couple different medians that are kind of in disrepair, and with a roundabout coming forward, nearing completion, can we tie those two in together so there's a little bit more of a cohesive feel as you come off the freeway and into town. Our first focus was to work, and we actually got assistance from Commissioner Tripathi and from the city arborist to look at the plant materials that were proposed for the roundabout, and are there substitutions that are similar that capture the same intent but will do better in this climate and we can maintain better long term. So that process took about 2 or 3 months. We did make some minor revisions. It still looks as it would have looked originally and as people had planned it. We just chose better plant materials for this climate and for our area. So that's been completed. At this point, we don't have funding to make any other changes to those exit ramp medians, but that is one of the things that's still kind of pending out there for us to work on. The art installations, we'll be doing that as an ongoing basis. Again, I think after this larger conversation about the vision of arts in town, but we do have the system in place. Jaime Lacey, our park superintendent, handles those when they come forward, goes through that process. So we're kind of transitioning. Now we're going to be in a little bit more of programs. So that was more parks and infrastructure. Now we're moving into programs. So affiliation agreements, this is something that Garrett Pertigo, our recreation supervisor, is working on. And it's really basically to develop agreements with each of our associations that better defines our roles. What does the city provide for sports association like Healdsburg Little League or Bulldogs? What do they provide for the community? What are our expectations of those sports associations to deliver services and be responsible to the community, since we're essentially providing facilities? It's more of a partnership kind of an agreement. He's got a template under development right now, and we'll be scheduling meetings with those different user groups in the near future, and I would expect to see agreements to come forward before this commission yet this year. Our recreation software replacement, if any of you have tried to register for our programs online, it's not always the most customer service or customer focused kind of application. It has limitations for us in terms of how we use it. It's got an email marketing program, but it's not real functional. So we want to look at options to replace that with something that's more user-friendly, more customer-focused, and quite frankly, easier for us to administer. We've done some initial reviews of different software options. There's, I think, one company that we still need to look at. That should happen this spring, and hopefully we'll come forward with a plan. This is really kind of more back-of-the-house stuff, but our customers will see, hopefully, a noticeable improvement in the next 9 months or so. It'll take a little while to implement.
Do you intend that to be bilingual?
I don't know the answer to that. That's a good question, and I don't know the answer. Okay. It hasn't been discussed, and I don't know what the capabilities are, but that's definitely something I'll bring back and ask if that's feasible. How does it happen? You know,
right.
Facebook now has an option to translate. I don't know how accurate it is, but perhaps that's something that could come forward.
It's actually pretty funny sometimes.
Is it?
Translations.
Yeah, I think that's what you run into if it's auto-generated.
Right. Yeah, for sure. It would be great if it were, though.
Okay. Moving on. Again, programmatic side right now. So the school district has to renew their funding every year for the after-school program that we provide on behalf of the school district. That process is underway. We're actually in conversations with the school district about improvements to the program, including where the program is best suited to be housed. There's a potential it could move to the school district sites. That would provide greater connections between the students and the teachers and our after-school staff. They also have some space that we could potentially utilize. As part of their renewal, we'll go through a process to renew the MOU with the district, which basically ensures that we continue to provide the program and meet the district's expectations and the rules. One of the exciting things that's going to happen with the next round of funding is the state's going to allow it to be a fee-based program as well. So in the past, you had to meet certain financial criteria to be a participant. They're going to open that up. It'll allow greater diversity, more integration, and I think it will really enhance the program and allow us to meet the needs of other community members who may not qualify for this particular program. We've talked about this in-house for a couple of years, but that restriction has always really prohibited us from moving forward because we'd like it to be an integrated program. So that's kind of exciting. That'll launch in the fall of this year. So with the next school year, we'll launch that piece of it. Again, we still have to go through the MOU renewal with the district, but that all looks like it's looking favorable.
And what grades are included in these programs? Is it just elementary, or is there junior high and high school also?
Our program runs K through junior high, so kindergarten through junior high.
And is that going to be announced, that change in fee-based programming, is that going to be announced in the fall catalog?
Absolutely. I think it'll be a big deal for the community because I think there are parents who struggle. We just have to go through the process with the district. They have to receive approval for their renewal of funding, which is as I understand, not real complicated. And then we have to enter into the new MOU, but I think it's exciting.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, teen programming. This is something we've talked about. We started a little bit of it last year with the Grind and our teen adventure camp, so we plan to continue those. We'd really like to commit additional work developing teen programming and how we best serve teens in the community. I think that's one of our underserved demographics. And so that's kind of in Garrett's workshop right now to continue to work on that. We'll be looking at that as part of our budget preparation for the next 2-year budget as well. The banner program. Hopefully you've noticed improvements in the last couple of years in the downtown banners. When I first got here, they were kind of shoddy and not really very consistent. Thanks to the work of the Roundabout and some local businesses who really took an interest in that, I think we've at least enhanced the banner program and the visual appearance and the streetscape in the downtown area. Not everyone likes the artwork that was selected, but I think it's an improvement over what's been up in the past. Dave Jan gets to work on that program. He's also working on identifying a better program for other banners. When they go up at Rec Park, can we have a better system there so it doesn't look quite so cluttered and there's more organization when that happens? So some of the things that we work on behind the scenes that the community might not be aware of that fall within our responsibility. The swim center. We're currently, so the school district, as you know, commissioned an assessment of the pool and how it would function for their educational programs. That assessment basically came back and said there would have to be significant improvements to use it as an educational facility because it doesn't meet the current state architect's codes or requirements for swimming facilities. So the district asked the city if we would continue to operate it on their behalf so they can continue to offer continue to host their swim team there. we can continue with all of our aquatic programming that we do. We can do lap swimming, we can do some things like that. What we haven't really done yet is grow the program. Because of the seasonal shutdown, it creates obstacles for people kind of ongoing. Dave's working with the pool manager, Lorraine Carter, on really trying to continue growing that program and creating that year-round use and excitement, and making sure people know that the pool is actually there and available for people's use. So ongoing work. We're going to really need to talk about the pool itself as part of the facilities assessment that we'll be launching soon, and what are the needs there. There are some capital needs for the facility and for the infrastructure there. So how do we pay for that? What do we do with all that as we move forward?
And the pool opened today, or is it tomorrow?
It opened on Monday. It felt great. So, okay. Moving on, another project with the school district is to renew our joint facilities use agreement. This allows each other to use facilities at no cost, creates just a really seamless way for us to use high school facilities and for them to use our facilities or the city council chambers. This is in Dave Jan's workhouse, and he'll be working on that, I think, this year. There's an existing joint facility use agreement that just is ongoing. It continues until either one of the entities makes a change to it, or both. We have a great relationship with the school district. They're very willing to work with us, and hopefully they feel the same in working with the city. The special event policy and municipal code updates, that's something that's in progress. I understand the subcommittee has met a number of times on that, and that'll be coming forward in the near future for review by the commission and a recommendation to city council. The rental policy updates, we implemented this late last year, the subsidized rental program for nonprofits. It's an initiative that the city council wanted, and they funded. So now we have the opportunity for any nonprofit in town to rent a facility, one of our facilities for meetings or activities under the subsidized rental program. It's generally 3 hours once per month. So those groups that meet once per month can meet in one of our facilities for free. The concert series development, I know Dave is hard at work with Dan Zestro, who does a lot of our bookings and a lot of the contacts with different performers, looking at the formats and logistics, the diversity in the series, the Sunday series that we launched last year. Does that continue? Does that change? How do we deliver that? Consideration of street closures, I believe that's also been part of the subcommittee's work. So it's underway right now, and I think we'll have an exciting series for this summer. Along the same lines, community events development. We've launched a lot of new initiatives in the past year or so with the Art After Dark. And so one of the things I asked Mr. Jans to work on was really coming up with a comprehensive year-long event plan. What are we going to do and what seasons? So we have that plan, preliminary stage right now. It's in refinement. I think you'll see some exciting enhancements. I mentioned it looks like we'll be doing an art festival this summer in July. We're looking at some kind of major holiday event in December that would complement what the chamber does on their Friday after Thanksgiving. But looking to fill in places, continuing on those great events like Dia de los Muertos, but really just have a plan on how we deliver this so we can work ahead of time and make sure we have everything in place. The community center enhancements, there were some fire and safety upgrades that we had to do. We learned this when the Nova School moved in. We had some things that were not quite up to current requirements. There's also a need for us to look at really our communication infrastructure. You might recall we had the slashing incident over a year ago. We lack some infrastructure in terms of communicating with classrooms and how we send the notifications out and inform people about what's going on there. And we also have some issues with locks and how they work and don't work. And so really completing kind of those safety and communication upgrades at the community center is really important. Dave and I are actually going to meet on Friday and talk a little bit more about that and how we move that forward. And then also really promoting use on evenings and weekends. So we get a lot of great use during the weekdays, We don't have a lot of use there on weekends. So what can we do to promote use, and what kind of activities can we offer that serve the community, as well as on Sundays as well. So now we're going to move into senior services. So this is another active adult and senior services is another component of our program, provided mainly through on a grant at the Senior Center. One of her major initiatives since she got on board was to look at transportation options for older adults. In surveys that we do and communications, that's one of the biggest obstacles for older adults remaining vibrant and vital members of our community. So we have a transit system that operates. Some people have issues getting to and from that. We have this informal volunteer driver program. There's Uber and Lyft. There is a taxi that has been authorized to work in town but isn't real active right now. So how do we put all these together into like a comprehensive transportation package for older adults? So people who live here can get to their doctor's appointments or get out grocery shopping if they don't have family, and really allow them to remain independent for as long as they can. So this is a really high priority. I believe that we'll be bringing forward a recommendation to the Senior Citizen Advisory Commission this month. It's a package that has all these different options, has some involvement with the city, and really provides a seamless way for our older adults to live and continue to live in their home independently in Healdsburg. Along those same lines, we've been working with the Council on Aging, which is COA, on their Age-Friendly Communities initiative. This is a concept where if you build something for the age 8, it'll be appropriate for age 80. So as you look at your town and your infrastructure and your walkways and your paths and your benches, if you build something new, should it have arms on it so someone who's older can get up and down out of their seat easier? Very simple things like that, but applying it citywide through our planning process and through our capital improvement program as well. The Council on Aging did an assessment, a walking tour of town with some volunteers. That process has been completed. They're developing their plan. We anticipate that we might be one of the first communities who has a plan and is ready to move forward and receives this designation as an age-friendly community. It doesn't mean you have all the issues resolved. It means that you have a plan in place and you're moving forward. All right, just a few more. First one is a repeat, sorry about that. The Endowment Fund, the Senior Center has an endowment fund. It's got some money in it. It's handled by the Community Foundation. It really hasn't done anything for the past couple years. So if any of the commissioners happen to have expertise in financial planning, that might be an area where you could contribute your resources as a volunteer. We really want to look at that fund. There's a requirement that meets a certain threshold before those funds can be utilized. And so what do we do with that fund? Because it's kind of just stagnant right now. The next one is the Senior Center back entrance upgrades. If you've been to the Senior Center on the back side, it's kind of like a wasteland of garbage cans and things like that. So what can we do on a low-cost basis that really enhances that? Because so many people come in that back entrance. Mm-hmm. So Anna's been working on that. We'll incorporate that as part of our CIP request. And then last on this list is the active adult program initiatives. Launching new programs that serve our active adult population. She's already started to do some Saturday socials. This past Saturday, there was a Valentine's Day event there. It was really well attended. There was a lot of people there, and they had some neat activities. She's working on some Latino-focused events. I think in January there was a tamale making session that we held there that was sponsored with Corazon. But really, that's a really valuable piece of real estate and a really prime location. How do we maximize its potential for the community as a whole? And that concludes my update. So a lot of projects underway, wow. A lot of things in the works. It seems like we move forward pretty slowly, but we have a lot kind of going forward at the same time.
Anybody have any questions or comments about this extensive plan? I'm very impressed. We have a lot we all have a lot in front of us this next few years. Okay, now we're on to new business.
So, Madam Chair, members of the commission, two of the things that would be helpful tonight is for you to have a discussion about goals and then make committee and liaison assignments if you're so inclined. Really, the goals are intended to provide a work plan for you as a commission and also for us as staff as we move forward in the next year. These will also feed in to the city council's overall goals that are posted on the wall that they'll be revisiting at the end of March. So you don't have to finalize your goals tonight, but you could certainly talk about what's current, what you want to continue to focus on. Are there new areas you'd like to add to your goals within the context of all the other work that's already planned? So they have to fit in somehow, or they'll be in addition to the work that's already planned. So your goals for 2017 were to develop sustainable funding options. And there were two goals or two objectives as part of that was to explore and analyze alternative funding mechanism and develop a cost recovery model for services. So our cost recovery model is underway right now, still in process. We had some preliminary work on alternative funding mechanisms related to the 3 North Street project, but we really didn't move forward very far in that discussion. The next was to provide leadership for projects. That was basically working within the capital improvement program. And I think you were heavily involved in that as it related to the Fitch Mountain Management Plan. Obviously, that took a lot of work and it extended longer than what we thought it would. And then the ADA study as well, having the report and encouraging moving forward to address barriers for people with disabilities. We also talked about continuing enhancing community engagement and project planning and long-term planning. There was a lot of community engagement in the management plan process, right? Yeah. Community meetings. And so I think that that philosophy and that practice will continue as we move forward. The third on your list was to initiate a conversation about the importance of and accessibility to the Russian River for the community. And we really didn't move forward very far in that conversation. I know it's been sitting out there for a number of years. There may be some options to work with the SSTAT process to have that conversation. What is the importance of the river to the community, and how do we embrace it, or what do we do if that's a desire? The fourth was to foster and enhance our community services. There were 3 objectives underneath that: to study, propose, and implement service changes, to work to enhance our partnerships, and to conduct a community needs assessment. Staff throughout the year added new programs like the Junior Giants. We made changes to programs like soccer to better serve participants, and we initiated new initiatives like the partnership with Corazon. We did not conduct a community needs assessment. There was one that was done in 2014 that looked at more kind of infrastructure kinds of things like park development, but we didn't really conduct any kind of needs assessment as it relates to programs and program services. The city is going to do a community-wide survey in the next couple months, so I know the city manager is looking at what information we want to try to capture, and so I think that would be a place that we could get some feedback on our services and where we need to focus as we move forward. And then the last one was to ensure relevancy, review the commission's charge, discuss roles. We kind of do that on an ongoing basis, and then actively engage in city planning processes. And as you know, in 2016, it was one of the first times in a long time where we actually had a capital improvement program where the commission was heavily involved in developing that. My plan is to continue that as we move forward in the next budget process. So those were the 17 goals, and I'll stop talking now.
So where do you want us to go with this? Shall we take each one at a time and see what we think we should carry over, or?
So it's really a conversation for you as a commission. What do you want to focus on this year? Are these still important? Are there new goals that you would like to focus on? Again, there's a lot of work that's going to continue. The entire list that I just went through previously will continue. And so are there things that you, in addition to that work, in addition to what we talked about now, that you'd like to see us add into that mix?
Okay. This is a huge, long conversation. Yes.
Well, I'm pretty comfortable with the framework with a lot of this that we developed last year, and especially I think goal number 1 with the funding mechanisms. I think that's something that we want to continue to, assert and be active with. So there's an ad hoc committee. I think that's. Well, we'll talk about that later. But so I feel comfortable with that being still at the top of our list. And as far as number 2 is concerned, those sort of things. We sort of play them as they come, and we have Saggio coming up this summer probably, and so obviously we'll take that on and be working with that. That I don't know how much we need to actually be proactive with that. Is sort of going to be put into our laps, right? So, back to number 3. It's good to keep this river discussion on the list. We didn't do much with it. Obviously, the feasibility question, which is right there at the front, ties in with goal number 1. So maybe those will go hand in hand. But it would be interesting to see, what other parts of the community have an interest in moving something like that forward, and engaging them.
Could I suggest maybe getting involved with the Russian River Keepers on that?
Can you speak closer to the mic?
Yes. I was suggesting that maybe we could get involved with the Russian River Keepers on access to the river, that they might be a good group to get involved with looking at accessibility.
They're already part of our conversation with that. So
They are, okay.
Yeah.
Could you fill me in on that?
Excuse me?
Could you fill me in on that then? So
Well,
what has gone, because it made it sound like not much has happened with that.
Not much has happened because we've had other projects that have gone along and funding was an issue. We did a walk along the river, was it last year, I believe, and Russian River Keepers gave us some good direction in terms of what we need for them to cooperate with our plans. And there's a lot of specifics, so we can certainly go over that with you.
And I would add that, Section B here with the Sonoma County aspect of it is going to probably be a big part of it. So there again, there's been a delay, and it'd be interesting to see what we can do to communicate with them when the timing's right.
Yeah, so Madam Chair, members of the commission, I'll just kind of weigh in too. I think when we get into this conversation about the importance of the river, I think the Russian River Keeper obviously is a part of that because they have a huge interest in the future. As I understand, this was before I got here, but when they were looking at preliminary ways to create better access in Badger Park, there were site visits with the Russian River Keeper and ways to do that. And I think there was significant support at the time. We haven't circled back lately because we really haven't had a chance to launch this initiative. So definitely when that time comes and we're ready to move forward, we'll engage the Russian River Keeper.
So the point is, in not necessarily our specific, what's the word? What we're doing in setting the goals is setting some specific goals and not necessarily all the details that go with it. So,
right. I appreciate that.
if you feel that keeping the Russian River accessibility is an important thing, well, then let's keep that on our list of goals, and then we can jump in and deal with the details later as it comes up. Okay. Chris, did you want to continue?
Just one other point here is, and under number 5, ensure relevancy. There was a discussion of having a liaison with the city council, and I think some of the other commissions have that, and so I'd like to kind of keep that afloat if they are interested. I personally am interested in that. I think it's a good tie-in, but be interested to see the pros and cons on having that, and that would, I think there'd be some valuable communication as a result. So.
Go ahead.
My only comment would be, as it relates to number 1, when we talk about getting into things that are more granular, and this is kind of a high level, what are the generic and general goals and objectives, but if we're looking at funding options, I'd like to have us prioritize things that we think might not be prioritized maybe by their dollar value, but might be the biggest contribution to the community. And I'd like to think that during this year, 2018 in particular, we could actually identify projects that would require funding, go out, seek the funding, conclude them, and be able to say we identified something, we accomplished it, and it's done. So, we had a presentation, for example, we had a presentation a couple meetings ago from Rich Schwartz about the soccer program. And I've taken a personal interest in that. I like to make sure that if there's scholarships that need to be taken place or something to get that program up and running and back to the level it was many years ago before it ran into some problems, I'd like to see that happen. Now, that's a small one, but it's a very doable one, and it's one that's going to build a lot of value for the community if these young people have some place to generate their energy other than with handheld devices like I do most of the day. So I'd like to encourage us to try to, as we look at these things from a high level, to start to really work to identify projects large and small that we can make assignments to, and then at the end of it, we can look back on these 12 months and say we've accomplished something and we've actually struck our name onto something that's meaningful here in the community. So that's where I stand.
Right.
Madam Chair. So I'm on the same wavelength, basically. I think that the way these goals were developed last year, they're still ongoing for this year. I like the way they were set, and we do have to define them a little bit more as we go per. But I'd like to see them all go on to this year if possible.
I agree.
Agreed.
Ron.
Well, I just want to bring up for discussion whether or not we want to consider elevating arts in the community to an actual goal, either a sub-goal of one of their major goals or a goal itself. Something that we took up last year that just kind of came on our table, and we seem to kind of gotten a lot more involved with it, and it seems like art is affecting us or hitting us in many different angles. I don't know if that's something that's worthy of being elevated to a goal or not, or if it fits in under the sub-goals. I just thought I'd mention it to see how the other commissioners feel.
I agree on that, especially with what's coming up at the roundabout. I think the artwork at the roundabout is going to be a big issue like it has been in our neighbor cities. And I think we need to talk about a group that's going to be able to do that.
Well, I think as we move forward too with the Saggio Hills Park, if there's going to be art that's going to be somehow incorporated into the park, and we're going to have some decisions as to whether it's appropriate, if it's design, if its style is safe, and so forth, we should definitely have some portion of this that indicates our objective.
So go ahead.
I can kind of imagine. I'm not totally married to this idea, but I can imagine that seating under number 2 as another element there. But yes, it is an up topic and deserves our attention and
So
should be woven in here somewhere.
So am I understanding you to say that to provide leadership for projects would include the arts rather than having a separate goal?
It could be. I don't know.
I would agree with putting it under number 2 if you need someone to vote.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
If it's a project that has to do with the roundabout or anything else we might be discussing, I think adding art under that category would be appropriate. A simple way to.
As an item C, right?
Correct. Yeah. Good suggestion.
Okay, so is there a consensus that we keep the same goals?
And I would actually like to make a comment, and I think it would be good to add under number 4. I feel like the community center could do a better job with outreach towards the community for the programs that they have in place. I know I've heard a lot from people who use the facilities that it's difficult to find out when classes are being held. The catalogs, when they go out, don't necessarily coincide with programs that are offered privately around the city. So, for instance, some of the preschools offering summer camps and spring break camps. I feel like we could do a better job of getting those catalogs out by mail. Also, I know Mark had mentioned that they're working on email. I think that's a very important item. And then also social media. And I know for a fact that the city has a social media policy that keeps the department from posting things on Facebook besides their own site on Facebook. And I feel like maybe we could work on the communications as a whole for this department and bettering it in both, in all three of those categories. So email, social media, as well as the catalog coordinating when people actually need that information. So,
And Mark mentioned the website improvements would.
Yeah, I was
Right.
going to say that if you were talking about the question you're going to ask Mark about the bilingual aspects of the website,
so that would.
I would think incorporating that in to use that methodology to communicate with the community would be much more efficient than even the mail and the catalogs and so forth. I'm relating back to the presentation from Tame and Park, because they do an absolutely spectacular job. Of anybody that's ever been there or registered there, word of mouth, they send you push notifications. If there's anything going on there, you get notified about it. And if the community did that on a broader outreach, we'd have much more participation, I think.
Right, and I think it is important for enrollment and getting those numbers. And you had mentioned that you're going to be looking at fee-based, and I feel like if we're going to be holding these classes and funding these classes, that we should be trying to fill these classes to their full potential, and that would help fund from a monetary standpoint. To do that, though, we have to look at it from kind of a sales aspect, and that's what private businesses do. And so if we are going to be funding these programs publicly, we should take into account that sales, getting in front of people, how many ways. Is it hard copy, which I know the community center tried to get away from the hard copy catalog, and that was a mistake. A lot of people were looking for that, and it was difficult for people that expected to be getting that in the mail and it not showing up in the mail. And then email, it's such a simple thing to get in front of people. Social media is huge, and not having those policies in place to allow the different supervisors within the department to get the word out there about the programs that they are going to be holding is very important. So I feel like that could be a goal that goes under item number 4, I believe.
So what are subcategories in number 4, foster and enhance the community services? Are there any?
Correct. And then we would add a letter D, which would talk about outreach and communication. And I'll write some more content to that.
I think that'd be great.
And then we would also add, under 2, we would add arts.
Yeah.
Again, I'll write about, helping to create this vision or work through this process to identify what the arts is to the community, something along those lines.
I have some preliminary wording if you want to hear it.
That'd be great. On which one? On the arts?
Yes, for the arts, I came up with engage the community in defining and expanding the role of public art in our city.
Do you mind giving me that after the meeting?
Sure.
Okay, that'd be great. Yep,
Good.
we can add that
sounds
in.
good.
Do you think we've given you enough information to fill in?
I do. So the goals kind of are living. We revisit them every once in a while. My thought is that this would extend over a 2-year period. So we'll model. We're starting to work on our budget process, and we'll talk about that in the next couple months. So we'll make sure that we, model the. I want to say model the budget after the goals, but the goals are reflected in our budget as well. If there's things that we need to take into account, that we'll incorporate that into our budget request. And then also, these will be great to forward on to the council. So at your next meeting, I'll bring back a proposed draft, and you can choose to amend that or accept or adopt that, and then we'll bring that forward to the city council for their goal setting session. They typically focus on a lot of things, and so the city manager's right now talking about the best process to give them information. Not everything will be able to go forward, so we'll try to kind of pick our highest priorities.
Super.
Okay, great.
Great.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So we're on to number 6, information and report of community services activities.
Sorry, Madam Chair, if I could back up. One of the things that would be good too is to establish your committees and your liaisons. However, since Commissioner Tripathi isn't here this evening, we could certainly do that at the next meeting, or if there are areas that you'd like to continue to serve, or if there's new committees, like if there's maybe a desire to have a communications group, then we could go ahead and talk about that tonight and finalize it next month. So your choice.
The way they're set up, the Parks Master Plan is something that's probably a few months out, and it's something we could reestablish at the right time if we don't want to have so many committees happening, and maybe replace it with something about outreach or what have you. I think that's a good one. Arts is covered. We talked about that a little bit, and I know special events policy is something that's live right now, and so that committee. Do you agree, Dave, that this is a committee you'll be working with?
Yeah.
Coming here, yeah, and then so just some thoughts there on how we can handle that. And yeah, as far as who's on it, it would be good to have Commissioner Tripathi here too to see where he wants to fit in.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, the one thing I would recommend is instead of the Parks Master Plan, that we have a facilities assessment subcommittee committee who will be working with us on that process. I think we're going to have quite a bit of public input, and it would be good to have a work group from this commission who's part of that. So that would be one change that I would recommend. Instead of calling Parks Master Plan, we'll call it the Facilities Assessment Committee.
That's a good suggestion.
And then did we want to add a communications group?
I would like to.
I think that would be beneficial
I think so
for
too.
staff. Okay.
And how many people are you looking at for each of these?
Two to three, up to three.
Okay.
So up to 3 people. The other change we probably should make, we'll have Fitch Mountain, but we'll also have Healdsburg Ridge moving forward. So we'll call it the Open Space Subcommittee.
Right.
Okay.
That's not too open-ended. I know it's supposed to be very specific, but I think that's
We'll make sure
specific
it's
enough, right?
focused. Yeah,
Okay.
focused on the development of Fitch Mountain and then the transfer of Healdsburg Ridge.
Okay.
Okay, do you want to, Commission, do you want to postpone this until Jay is here? Is everybody happy with where
I
they
think so.
are on their commission?
Should we
on their
maybe,
committee?
just a suggestion, should we maybe state which committees we're interested in case one of us is absent at the next committee and meeting? And that way we at least know where everybody stands on what their interests are so that then Jay can state his.
Okay, so take a look at the list, you guys, and see what you think.
I'd like to stay on my 2 committees, the open space, and continue with the arts, and the special events I think is going to dissolve by next month, so no need for that. And I would still like to continue to serve as and do a better job this year of being a liaison with our senior advisory commission.
So if I can follow that up, I do think we're getting pretty close to conclusion with the Special Events Committee, which has been really rewarding, as a matter of fact. It's been a good job. Anyway, looking forward to seeing that through to completion. So I wouldn't mind or be opposed at all to being on the Facilities Assessment Committee and also the Communications Group. If you're looking for volunteers, I'd step forward for those 2 and continue to be a liaison with the Community Housing Committee.
I too am comfortable with the 2 committees I'm in right now. I don't see a need to change if that works out.
How about you, Juan?
I'd like to stay on the Arts Conversation Committee and then start doing something on the Planning Commission liaison. So I think I'm covered on that. I'd like to stay where I'm at.
I'm happy to stay where I am. The Fitch Mountain Open Space, I think, is going to be winding down, don't you think?
Actually, the planning process will take several months, but then we'll also have the transfer of the ridge. So,
Right.
By the end of this year,
Yeah.
those
Okay.
will be. But
Right,
then
definitely.
we also have we committed to having essentially a stakeholder group. So that would be a role that
Okay.
this commission could play.
Okay. So I'm happy on arts and Fitch Mountain.
I don't know if it's a conflict, but I've been contacted by Ray Hawley to participate in the Fitch Mountain Fund. So I'm attending some meetings with them just to find out where they're headed and what their needs are. So
Someone may have dropped your name.
somebody,
Not sure
I don't
who.
know who. Yeah.
I'm not sure who.
Little bird.
And then I'm interested in obviously the Communications Committee. So special events sounds like it's dropping soon then off. So I would have been interested in that. And then the Open Space Committee, since it sounds like it has a couple new items, but there are 3 people on there. So if somebody wanted to drop off of that committee, I would be happy to fill their spot. And then I'm also interested in the Parks Master Plan, or however you're renaming that, with the facilities
Facilities assessment?
assessment. Is that what it was? Facility assessment.
Is there any interest in creating essentially a funding committee?
I think there should be.
I think so
Yeah.
too.
We had something like that before, and it's our number one goal.
Yeah, clearly.
So if it's not too many,
I'll take the lead.
maybe that's something we should consider and see if there's have volunteers for. I would
Special-
like to,
Special Projects Funding Committee, something like that.
and
And I
I'd
have
like
an
to
interest
nominate
in
Commissioner Lambert for that. I think you are well qualified, and you were involved in the other one, so if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Sounds
Yeah.
like a great fit.
Awesome.
and I'd be interested in helping out as well.
Anybody else?
Maybe we can keep the membership sort of penciled in and see what Jay wants to do.
Right. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I'll just note who expressed interest on the different committees for your next agenda, and then we can finalize it at that point.
Okay, are we ready?
I'd say I do have interest in the funding subcommittee, but a little more committed to the other ones I'm already on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, let's go on to information. Are we on new business? Oh,
Number
we
7.
just finished new business. Let's just go on to information and report of community service activities.
So as I mentioned, just a few quick updates. So we received 4 proposals for the facilities assessment. We interviewed 3 firms a week ago Friday. Some really different approaches towards it. And I'm in conversations right now to try to better define the scope of work and what they can deliver. Some of the firms approach this as a park system plan update. Only one of the firms really has really approach it as a facilities assessment, where you're looking at the current condition, the replacement costs, the life cycle, all those kinds of things. So I'm in those conversations, hopefully have that wrapped up this week, and have a recommendation that'll move forward to the city council in the near future. Bottom line, they're all great. I think they could all do a great job. And so I'm excited to at least get that process moving. So that's great. I talked about the park development fees and the process update. So at your next meeting, I'll come forward with the kind of the overall plan for you to review. We are implementing the fees currently, so that's a big step forward. And we talked a little bit about the temporary art installation program. That should be underway in March as well. I really think that has a lot of potential to be a really cool program that could go beyond just the site that we've identified over time as we get interest and as people find out that it's a possibility.
Can we, just for my edification, go back to the facilities assessment update? Now, was this the outside organization that had come and proposed to go through all of our facilities and parks and look at the cracked sidewalks and try to assess which things were maybe code-related or ADA violations and so forth? Is this what we're talking about?
So that would feed into this. So this is a little more global. So it's basically taking all the data that we currently have. So we have that ADA study that JQP did. We have the community center master plan. We have all these other documents and planning documents, and pulling that together and then filling in some holes, going out to the parks, inventorying the play structures, what year were they installed, what's their condition, when do they need.
And we had talked about that at one point, and I
did.
sort of volunteered to, since we couldn't get the group to go out and do this together and kind of do a tour, I went out part-time with a camera and kind of walked around and did a little assessment myself. So,
Which is great.
yeah, so I'm just wondering if there's a document that's actually been produced that I can mirror and compare to what I've looked at. Just
No, not yet.
Okay, just
No.
thought I'd ask. Okay. Thank you.
Are you done?
I'm done.
Okay. So, does anybody have any reports on matters of interest occurring since our previous meeting?
I'd like to share
Yeah.
one thing. For those of you interested in the arts, I've been diving into public art and trying to learn more about it. And there's 3 projects that I've run across in the past that you, if you're interested, that you might want to look up. One was called the Tilted Arc, It was a modernist sculpture that was installed in the Federal Plaza in New York City at great expense and was removed under controversy. Another one, also New York City, was called the Bronx Bronzes. These were all public works projects that went through commissions like our own and had been approved, which also ended up being quite controversial and was also removed. And then lastly, a very interesting project that took place between the 1988 Super Bowl and San Diego, which was called America's Finest City. What was it called? America's, I'm going to mess it up. Should have wrote it down. America's Finest Plantation City, I think is what it was called. And it was a public artwork that went on a bus as billboards that was meant to be controversial and strike a conversation about migrant workers and their role they played in the city of San Diego. So if you get a chance, all of these things were all public art projects. They're all, the last one kind of snuck through the system with the way they wrote their grant, but they were funded. The other two went through quite a bit of planning and were approved, and they all were, didn't work out so well. So as we think moving forward about the role of arts in our community and where we want to go, it's been kind of interesting. Do we want to have, how much thought do we want to provoke, make our citizens think? Where do we want to draw the line, or do we want to be totally neutral, which then can be kind of boring? And what's the purpose of art if it's just kind of bland and boring? So anyway, that's my stuff to share. As I dive more into it and read more about these things, I'll be happy to share what I run across. So you can look it up and engage as much or as little as you wish.
Great, I love it.
That's interesting.
Anything else?
No.
Okay, so let's look at the possible agenda items for the next meeting. We've got the special events policy, the park development fees and processes.
Are we going to open that up for public comment? Are we going to send out a notification to have the public invited? Yeah, we are for that meeting. Okay.
The special event policy, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. And we're going to do it at the meeting, or are we going to have a separate?
Good evening.
I did.
So yes, that was a discussion topic that Ron and John and I discussed in our subcommittee, as whether we open up this for discussion at the next Parks and Rec Commission meeting, which will absolutely be a public discussion, or whether we have a smaller public discussion that happens about a week or two prior to that meeting. And I kind of will leave that up to you guys, whether you, essentially it will encompass special events, the municipal ordinance changes that we'll be proposing to council, but also be looking at Tuesday night concerts as a whole, and some things like road closures. So there's the potential that could be a broader, longer discussion. So I'm happy to do it in any of those fashions. We could have two conversations, one conversation, however you guys would like to see it come before you at the commission.
We had discussed doing more of like a
Workshop.
town hall meeting and a workshop at the senior center, so more people could be involved, and it wouldn't necessarily be something that was acted upon. It just gave everybody an opportunity to hear what our thoughts were, but at the same time have a chance for them to be heard by us as to what they're thinking. And the idea was to do this, I think, prior to the meeting, and then we would be in a better position to talk about it as a commission. So I just thought I'd raise that to see if we did, in fact, want to go ahead and at least open it up and see if we have a turnout for that.
My thought process on that was more focused on the Tuesdays in the Plaza and what we might be changing with that, because that's obviously a very large community event. Emotions run high, and there's a lot of one way or the other. If we make changes to things, some people are probably going to be upset about it. So rather than let us try and figure it all out here, I know we're very wise, but to bring it to the public and give them an opportunity to comment on it. As far as the minutia of the special events policy and the code, I don't think people are going to be as much interested in that. I don't think it's going to be as nearly as controversial. My other concern was that in a more town hall workshop form, people are more likely to share their ideas and voice their opinion. Most people might be intimidated by coming up to a podium announcing their name and sitting in front of the great Star Chamber to voice their opinions, where in a more relaxed atmosphere, they might be willing to raise their hand. And once things get going, and people start talking about whether we should have dogs on a leash or no dogs, or whether we should close the street or whatnot, they might all start, I think you'll get a more active and constructive discussion in that kind of form, rather than just putting it out here in this meeting and giving them one shot before we take a vote and make a recommendation to City Council. So that was my thought process on having a workshop for, more specifically, the Tuesdays in the Plaza changes that may or may not come about.
So I think you answered my question there, Ron. But the idea is that when this does come to our agenda, that we would be voting to recommend a package of suggestions to the City Council at that point. Is that correct?
Correct. So the recommendation that you guys would be looking at would be more specifically the special events policy and the municipal code changes, because those will go before City Council. The Tuesday concert series, that's not something that is set in stone in municipal code, other than the alcohol ordinance that comes with that. So that's more something that's handled on staff level. But like Ron mentioned, we want this to be a public discussion. If we're making any changes to that series, we want the community to have a chance to have input on it. So the Tuesday night update would be more informational, whereas the special event policy and the municipal code changes would be a recommendation.
Okay.
So what do you feel more comfortable dealing with? With the public in a forum like this or in a workshop?
Well, I think the distinguishing, if I may.
Go ahead.
I think distinguishing differentiation is we're talking about a specific event that would be in a public forum, but actually the action we're going to take and the recommendation that's going to go to the City Council will be happening at the next meeting. And I just wanted to raise the distinguishing factors between the two. So there really isn't any discussion about public comment. Probably won't come forward, I would think, about the special events policy. In other words, I don't foresee a lot of people looking at different ordinance changes that are taking place unless they feel it's going to be really impacting them personally, unless they read through it and understand it.
Right, and we will publish that we'll be discussing changes in our special event policy. I think some of our stakeholders that our annual special event user groups will be interested, and we'll certainly will reach out to them. But agreed, I think more interest will lay in the Tuesday night concert. So I think the way I see it, and correct me if I'm wrong, is how it would fall as agenda items is there would be the special event policy and ordinance change recommendations, and then more of a Tuesday night update. I know we did that in the fall, kind of post-concert series, but this would be pre-concert series, what we are anticipating to do as far as road closures, things like opening acts, what we're looking at for the band lineup, setup protocol, things like that, which then, of course, the public would have the ability to comment on. And I should backtrack. We won't have a band lineup ready to present or change that process, but just kind of give you an update on where we are in the process. Yeah. But I am, to answer your first question, I mean, my comfort level aside, I want to give the community the most opportunity to give feedback. I know we tried that in the fall with some minimal participation. So if you're under the impression, and I think we do have the time to have a separate community discussion, I'm happy to foster that.
So who's on you're on the committee? And who else was on the committee?
I am.
Are you willing to meet?
I am, yeah, absolutely.
Let's do that.
That sounds good. I will, I'll take a look at calendars and we'll try to get a date nailed down here sometime between now and the next meeting, probably within the next 2 weeks, right somewhere in the middle. So I'll work with Commissioner Lambert and Dudley on that.
And then you'll report back at our next Parks and Rec meeting of what the committee did.
Yeah, happy to do that, or we could look at it where we have the public discussion, and then I bring my report forward, and anyone that's at that discussion would be encouraged to come.
Okay.
If they have strong opinions one way or the other, come voice them in front of the whole board.
Great. Okay, so what else is on there? Park development fees and process, capital improvement program, livability workshop outcomes, and additional sculpture installations. Ooh.
To be determined. One of the things that we need to talk about is our March meeting date. So the typical date conflicts with our state conference, so we'll be away on that Wednesday. So looking at options, Most likely, if we're going to also try to squeeze in a public meeting, wondering what the following Wednesday looks like for folks. It would be the 21st of March.
Works for me.
For our next meeting?
Correct. It would typically be the 14th of March, but we would look at the 21st of March.
I cannot do it the 21st, but my chair could take, vice chair could take over.
I can do the 21st.
I'm available the 21st.
That's okay for me, I think.
It doesn't have to be a Wednesday. The 22nd, any better? The Thursday?
Are you available, Kathy?
22nd is better for me.
That works for me as well.
I'm good.
I am as well.
I'm fine.
I could do that too.
So I will confirm with Commissioner Tripathi, but let's plan on a Thursday, the 22nd of March. And I'll follow up and confirm with everyone.
Okay, so the 14th is canceled,
Rescheduled.
rescheduled.
So on future agendas, we also have, of course, we're going to revisit the goals. Is that correct?
Correct. I'll be adding that to the agenda.
And then we'll be finishing the ad hoc committees.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Anything else? We all squared away? Okay, so it's time to adjourn if somebody would like to move.
I motion to adjourn.
A second?
All approved?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Close, thank you.
Let the record show.
Oh, look at that, Dad. It's going to be one long